Hey everybody, I'm Amanda with DevExpress and welcome to 17.1 Launch Week and our second webinar of the week, New in 17.1 WinForms and WPF Controls, presented by DevExpress CTO Julian Bucknall and DevExpress Technical Evangelist Paul Usher. All right, thank you so much for joining us. I will now hand things over to Paul and Julian.
Thank you, Amanda, and good morning, everyone. It is certainly a pleasure to be doing yet another What's New group of webinars this week. And we've already seen, Julian, that there are people from all over the world joining us this morning. So good morning to you.
And thank you very much, and good morning to everyone out there. It's a beautiful morning here in, well, I'm in Colorado, so yeah, it's pretty fabulous.
And
How about New York? Yep. I believe you're in New York instead of Brisbane.
New York is sunny and crisp, but certainly a welcoming place. And of course, last week we're in Build. It's like on the go all the time.
All travel, all fun. Well, not really.
Now let's talk about version 17.1, Julian. What, if you could sum it up in one word, what would it be?
I would use the word performance, but use it 3 times. Performance, performance, performance. We've done an awful lot of work over the past 5 months or so to try and improve performance, where customers have basically sent us feedback saying, you know, here's situation X, it's really slow. Situation Y looks okay, but situation X, So we've been doing quite a bit of performance improvements, shall we say.
We want your chart control to handle 1 billion points, not just a couple of million. So if you move to the agenda first before we get too far ahead.
Yep.
As usual, you took the short straw.
I decided to take WPF, and you've taken WinForms. WinForms, despite rumors to the contrary, is still going strong. It's still going strong. At Build, I had questions in the booth about WinForms. Let's put it like that. So it's not one of those, legacy, gone, bye-bye. Just, you know, make sure it compiles in the next version. No, WinForms is still very big. And WPF, ditto, shall we say.
Very much. So this time, though, I think we'll start with WPF. And in fact, what I'll do when we get to the WinForms section, rather than rehashing the features that are common across both, and have you chiming in every 5 minutes saying, that's for WPF too, we'll simply look at the extra features that WinForms has had.
And in fact, that's a good point. We are trying to maintain functionality at the same time across both platforms now. No longer were we, you know, just writing stuff for WinForms and then, you know, next release we'd do it for WPF. We're trying to get both platforms up to the same level and then releasing enhancements and new features and so on and so forth across both platforms at the same time. So be warned, for 17.2, we tried to do some of that for 17.1. But before we move on to the actual enhancements, I'm going to go back to my performance thing. So here's a little chart of charts improvements.
A chart of charts.
Yes, indeed. Just to show the kind of things that we've managed to do with charts across WinForms and WPF. I hasten to add, this is not just, you know, oh, this is just WinForms or something. So as you can see there, we have a couple of columns. Ignore competitor A. Whoever it is doesn't begin with A. Look at 16.2 there. That's what we used to be able to do up until version 17.1. So the million points, initialize and startup used to take around about 7 seconds in 16.2. We've managed to halve that. For 1 million points. I'm not just talking about, oh, we've got a nice little bar chart with, you know, 20 bars. No. We're talking about real performance improvements here. Real-time update, as you see, improved there again by half. And basically, it's apart from the multi-series real-time update, it's roughly half the time. So it's not just something where we shaved off 5% of the time or anything like that. This is big improvements, and we are going to continue with these kind of performance enhancements. We recognize that to position ourselves in the market, we have to be the best as well as the fastest, or the fastest as well as the best. And on the other side of the coin, we have the pivot grid. Again, a very popular control, and this time we've tried to improve performance when you have a lot of data that the pivot grid has to analyze. So here we have the Contoso database from Microsoft, 1.4 million records, rows. In 16.2, it took 15 seconds to load that lot. And we're down to 2 seconds in 17.1. That's 1.4 million records. That's not just, oh, we recognize there's 1.4 million records. How the heck are we going to read them all? No, that's 2 seconds to read them all. And then we start off with the filtering, which is also a great improvement. And some analysis data there. We have 300,000 records, and we're generating a 6-level hierarchy. Wow. So you can imagine your users are going to be really pleased with this, because, wow, all of a sudden the pivot grid becomes a lot easier to use because you're not waiting around for it to do its loading and analysis and display and all that kind of stuff.
Now, Julian, coming through on the question channel at the moment, there's a couple of people ask the same thing, so I just want to address it. The question is basically, are these performance enhancements coming through all the different data sources we provide? Now, as I've just responded to one of the posts, that's a question I'm going to have to refer to or defer to the team and get back, because I honestly don't know whether it's across all of the streams that we do provide for loading the data. But one thing that is apparent is that the performance is going to be in more than just the SQL data source.
Oh, yes, I would say so. I mean, we're just using Contoso here as an example, essentially. Anyway, so performance. WPF, the new features. So there's a new accordion control. I'll explain what that is in a moment. The data grid gains some grouping of columns, merging of columns, shall we say. Chart control, as we see, improvements there, new financial chart improvement, or some improvements to the financial chart, I should say. Diagram control, we're gaining panning and various enhancements. It'd be interesting, actually, to get some feedback from the people listening who actually uses the diagram control. Is it something you find interesting, needed? You do hierarchical diagrams, management style things. Don't know. PDF viewer, there's been some enhancements to the PDF viewer. The main one is if the PDF has highlighted text, we actually now render that highlighted text. Pivot grid is mostly about performance. Spreadsheet, there's a new conditional format rule manager, which I'll be showing you, and rotated text, which my inner self likes to basically scream. Rotated text? What? Not just horizontal? And on the WinForms side, what have we got here? Look at this.
I could just say the same as what you've said. Obviously, we've had the accordion control for a while already in WinForms. There has been some other changes to the performance of it and some other API work, but we've got a lot of the same stuff happening. We have a new side panel control. There's a new skins editor. There's a number of miscellaneous items which I'm going to be calling out when we get to it. The data grid's got some extra things in WinForms, the map control, property grid scheduler, tree list control. There's design time enhancements. We've got updates for the OData v4 scheme. We've also got some changes to the data source wizard. So there's lots happening.
Okay, so I think without further ado, it's time to see something in action. So let me get rid of that and this is the WPF Demo Center. So from your start menu, just type demo, and demo center is the first thing, well, at least for me. And here it is. And all I did at this particular point was just select WPF. So demo center is great. If you looking at our web stuff, go online, it's always up to date, and so on and so forth. So to begin with, on my mind has gone blank, I do apologize. So on the new features for WPF, the new one is the accordion control. Let me show you for a little demo here we have called Auto Trader. What it's going to do is to display a kind of grid card control, essentially. We're just showing a bunch of cards for different cars and all that kind of stuff. But over here is the accordion control. The accordion control is like a navigation control, but it allows you to open and close the main groups or panels in the accordion. So you're opening, expanding, collapsing the accordion, if you like. And inside each of these panels, you can have basically anything you like. The nice thing about it is when the accordion grows so much that it can no longer be displayed in one main panel, we get the scroll bar, and the scroll bar is animated as well, so it grows so you can grab hold of it and so on and so forth. So that's the accordion control. Let me just show you briefly in the Photo Studio, which was an example app from before. And here's the accordion control on the back, on the right-hand side. And as I say, it's kind of like a navigation control, but a lot simpler, shall we say. You can put anything you like inside this panel. So we have, an image here, for example, and we have the what do you call those things?
Which ones?
The star control. The rating control.
Rating.
My word, my mind went blank there. So you basically design your panels within the accordion, and as I say, you can put any controls you like in there at all. So here we have a nice color balance. Ooh, scary stuff. Let's increase the red.
I think one of the things to highlight there as well is the fact that with the accordion control, you've got the nested accordion elements as well. So you're collapsing items inside items, and it becomes quite a neat navigation or toolbar style option for different uses.
Yep, indeed. Next up, let's have a quick look at the data grid control, the couple of changes there. The one thing I kind of find interesting is the merging of groups. Now, we've had grouping for a long time. So here we have, we're grouping by order date, and underneath that, we're merging country and city. So as you see down here, we have main group header for both country and city. So if you look at France, for example, the three main headers here. In the old days, let me just drag it apart. What we'd have would be this. And we have order date, open it up, and then we'd have to open up the country, and we'd have 3 cities before we actually see some data. So the the merging of groups within the grid here is designed to basically summarize, if you like, the groups. So basically you grab hold of it like before, and used to be able to just say, okay, let's put it back into the grid. But now when I grab it and press the control key, it says, you want to merge it with the country? And notice the arrows have a little plus sign. So we're saying the plus sign indicates you're going to be grouping those two together. So let's do the same with region. We'll group that within that, merge that within that group. Whew. And as we see, each item now, each header now is country, followed by city, followed by region. So that's group merging, very nifty. As I say, it's using the control key, so I can drag it apart and so on and so forth. and then with the control.
That's one of the features that were released in VCL that the customers screamed for.
This is kind of the most amazing thing. VCL, our product, basically copies what's in WinForms. For some reason, the VCL guys decided, oh, this would be really neat. And then the WinForm guys came along and said, hey, we really like that. So here it is in WinForms and WPF, because I'm showing off WPF. Diagram. With WPF, we've added some options here for animating your data as it changes. This is kind of a mock stock type grid, and every half second we generate some random data, and you can see the thing being updated and the animations occurring. So that's been added to the WPF side of things. Let me jump now over to the chart control. I think that's going to be the next one on the list. And we've added, basically, because we've improved the performance, we've added the ability to do a real-time financial chart. So again, we're kind of generating, sales, purchases of stock, and we can generate various averages to go along with that. So median price, the weighted close, and boom. And as you see, the chart is, I don't know how this really works with GoToWebinar. I don't know how quickly you can see the changes happening here, but believe me, it is being changed. Now notice the other thing about financial charts is you don't really care what happens when the exchange is closed, which is these lines here. It's closed. We can now define a work time where the exchange is open, or whatever it happens to be, and we can then avoid showing the data from when it's closed and the data is not changing. So here we have exchange open, and here we have exchange closed.
And those work times can be specified by the user. There is a default calendar, and you get to nominate, obviously, the days or times that you want to classify as work times in an object.
But again, this is not only displaying the new features here, we're also displaying the fact that the chart is being updated in, quote, real time, unquote. So lots of good things there. And let me jump now over to the diagram control. Diagram control, says he, can't even find it. There it is. Here we've added the ability to pan the diagram control. So what we have here is some kind of floor plan. And what I'm going to do is to grow the ribbon here. And notice we now have a little scroll bar, but it's much easier to basically grab it and move it around to where you want it to, where you want to concentrate on, where you want to investigate, where you want to change, and so on and so forth. So this panning control is now available with the diagram control. It's kind of fun. There's another fun thing that we're playing around with here. This is like a tournament thing. Oh, Denali versus Kilimanjaro. Let's make Kilimanjaro win this particular game, and we can then say, well, Kilimanjaro's got to appear over here. So I just basically click, and there it is. It won. That team won. Therefore, it goes up into this particular tournament. And yes, oh, I can pan it. It's kind of fun there.
Actually, I love that demo as a great example of some of the things you can do with the diagram control. I mean,
yeah,
it could be you may be doing some hobby sport and you just want to put something together. I think it's a really cool use of not having to write a lot of code but get a maximum return.
Yeah. Another new feature for the diagram control is the ability to collapse and expand groups of shapes. So here we have the standard management hierarchy diagram. Under our CEO, we can expand the various, I suppose, vice presidents, if you like, in that kind of level, and then we can expand it further. But again, it's pannable. And oh dear, this is getting really hard to see. So let's collapse that bit, and so we can see what this particular leg of the hierarchy control looks like. We can expand it further and so on and so forth. So expand, collapse, all available with the diagrams. Next, I'm just going to jump over to the spreadsheet control, and then I'm going to hand things over to our friend on the other side. So spreadsheet, a couple of new things. The conditional format rule manager has been improved a lot. So let me show you what it looks like at the moment. So here we are with some conditional formatting, and I can right click, say format cells. No, wrong place. That's not the right place. Let's go over here. Conditional formatting. So this new dialog gives your users the ability to set formatting rules for individual cells, for rows, for whatever it happens to be. So you read from the bottom up. Originally, it's going to be a top 5 thing, but if that cell value is greater than 0, it's going to be this, 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 and eventually we end up with this. It's a region of Asia, and it's going to be displayed as green black on green background, and so on. So it's a lot. So if I say let's this table, let's click selection, top 5, stop if true. Yeah, we're not going to do very much there. Let me choose a better idea here. So let's go here and click on conditional formatting again. So my selection is different this time. It's just the same thing. So the worksheet has all of these particular formatting rules. I can't find one which has something more interesting. Never mind. But easier to understand rule manager. Then the fun thing is the rotated text, which, as you can imagine, should only be used in moderation. That's about the only time I'd ever use rotated text in a spreadsheet. It makes it easier to get your titles or your column headers legible without destroying the visibility of the table underneath. So basically you just format cells and alignment. We have this orientation item here, so I can make it 0 again, and it becomes horizontal. Or I think I can go to -90 or something like that. We deliberately make sure that it's not. You can't put it upside down, for example. You can't change it more than plus or minus 90. So there we are. So on that score, I'm going to basically pass it over to Paul. Paul, are you ready to take over control here?
No, but that's okay. Do it anyway.
Okay, it's all yours.
Thank you, Julian. So we've stepped through some of the features, I think, that were common against both products. I'm going to do the same thing and launch the WinForms application from the technical demos. Starting with the grid, I'm not going to go through and repeat all the stuff that Julian showed you. Needless to say, the merge column grouping is available. There's one of the changes inside this version is the Office Compact view. Now, imagine you've got if you looked at the DevAV demo previously, under the evaluations tab, some of this information was put inside the view itself, this cell here on the left. One of the things that's been introduced is the compact view, which allows you to use grid tiles with numerous customization options, giving you that rich UX control. There was a blog post written about it, but in essence, you can see here that I've got a table layout. I can split my cells into different elements, and using the drag drop designer, I can place the items. So here we've got the information just on the review. We've got the date, which stands out now, and whether they received a raise and or a bonus is shown nice and clearly. I'll just step through a couple of people there so you can see. In fact, it seems that most people weren't actually eligible for a raise or a bonus than Julian. Now, you can also auto-fill the empty space. You can nominate one column and it will automatically change its width to occupy the rest of the empty space within the grid view, which is something that's been asked for. In addition, we also have the Excel style filtering. Now, I might have been answering questions previously when you showed some of this, but if we look at the drop down on the filter element, we've got the date filter here. We can also specify by value. This was available previously, but it's now being made the default across the filter elements. And depending on the style or the type of cell that you're looking at as to what comes up here. So we can see here's a predefined filter. So whilst I've got numeric values for miles per gallon based on city, I can set these predefined elements up to say, well, I want something that's medium economy, and you're not just dealing with the actual numbers. And I can switch back and use the slider control or the range control to nominate that as well. One of the things that's been introduced is the code examples. Now, this is really, really handy if you're wanting to play around with some of the features. It's a function that's available directly within the demo center, so that makes it easy to get to. And if you just come along here, you can see some preset examples of the code. So we can see the grid on this top right-hand corner. We can see the example code down here. And it could be that I want to say, okay, changes to blue. So I can actually work in the code. It detects a couple of millisecond delay, and then we'll rebuild the example in real time, showing you those changes. So you can step through. You can write your own example from scratch. We've got a bit of data in the class behind here as well for you to play with. Cell content alignment, we can say, this is based on the modulo of a row handle, and we can say, well, I want that by 4, and then again a couple of milliseconds, and we're going to see the change affect the grid straight away. So it's a really nice example of being able to work with some of those options. Just going to bring up the new unbound expression editor. Quite often when we're working with a grid, we're going to find the fact that we need a cell or a column that we want to do some custom calculation in. Typically, we've got here an example of a sales order or a purchase order, and we've got our total column. Now that total column is calculated as an unbound expression. The team have now put together an update to the expression editor, which introduces the syntax checking. It introduces a nice pop-up field element. So if I just come along here and press 2, straight away we're going to see that the parser has detected there's an error because what I've typed does not equate. If I was to go along and say multiply by 2, the 2 is now green, which means it's a checked field. If I then wanted to introduce another field, I can simply press the square brackets and we get a pop-up offering me all the fields available to that data set, as well as any functions that are available to the expression editor as well. Of course, it won't let me close the editor without going through. So it's a really nice welcomed feature to working with unbound expressions. And that's been applied to more than just the grid controllers, we'll see. I'm just looking for another example. We introduced the thinking of the word here, selectable filter operator is what I'm looking for. Now, previously you could turn some of this functionality on and off with your code. What the team wanted to do was provide a way to allow you to see the feature without losing any real estate. So you'll notice here that in my filter row, I've got this little visual representation to exactly what is being applied to this cell. And so this is a cell by cell level option. Each of the visuals make it easy so that you don't have to drop down the list to see what's going with. So it ends with, the last letter is covered. I'm going to say page, and we can see all the items end with page. As I step through each of these, obviously a Boolean expression, it's either one or the other, yet things like priority, equal, doesn't equal, and it's basically changes obviously the context for each of the cells as relevant. So dates, you've got a date range or a equal date or less greater than. It's a nice feature, and particularly this on a text element, you can come through and include the option. So it's something you can turn on or off for your users. Next, I talked about the column best fit. Inside, previously when we looked at setting up the grid width or the grid height, there's a lot of calculation going on. Julian mentioned performance earlier on, so it's one of those things. The best fit mode now has it's been improved to create that best fit calculation. So you're going to see some performance from there. There's also performance improvements when scrolling through rows during cell updates. And I've shown you the code first example. So let's jump across to the chart control. I won't jump into the financials chart. Julian's already shown some of that. But one of the things that has been introduced, and was shown yesterday on the ASP.NET presentation, is the ability to select items to be included directly in the legend. So I can come through and I can turn things off, or I can say I want to include not just beverages, but I also want the beverages trend. And you'll notice that the elements here are context sensitive as well, in the sense that I can't choose the dairy products trend unless I actually choose the dairy products data to be shown. So it comes through. So that's, again, a nice way of being able to allow your end users to go through and update what they want to see directly within the legend. We've talked about the performance enhancements and the different numbers on the charts. So that's, I think, being able to take it from that 7 seconds or 7,000 milliseconds down to 3,000 on initial startup. We're talking 50% improvement at that point. As far as the diagram control goes, I think, Julian, you showed all of the elements on that. So we can skip forward to, well, let's start in Visual Studio this time. Now, regardless of my word,
you're going to use Visual Studio? Oh.
Well, we are a Visual Studio tools provider.
Absolutely. Come on, let's see some code.
Now, before I'm not writing code, and now I'm going to have to start coughing.
I do apologize. This is like an in-joke between Paul and myself during our rehearsals. Oh, we're going to show some code. No, we can do it without code.
No coding today. One thing I do want to just highlight, and quite often little things like this get missed out of presentations, they get missed out of marketing material, but it's the little things sometimes that make the difference to the developer. Now, inside Visual Studio, I've got my DevExpress menu. A couple of things here. If you come down to the WinForms Controls option, you'll see an item that says Disable VS Property Grid Search Box. Now, it may be a little embarrassing, but I was like, when did we actually introduce that feature? Because it's something that was sorely missing from the Visual Studio Properties panel. And if you look here, I can now say I want padding. So I start typing PA and boom, I'm going to get just the elements that represent what I'm typing. So no longer do I have to search large amounts of properties. In fact, my favorite was always to sort A to Z anyway, rather than the categorized view, but we've now got that search feature inside there, which you can disable if you don't want. The other thing is just the fact that inside that menu, we're starting to add more and more tools to help you be productive. If you want to submit a support ticket to the amazing teams, you simply choose that and it's going to go straight into a new question. You don't have to spin out to a browser, open it up, find something else. And exactly the same for documentation. It's a quick link directly to that, and even the demo center. So you don't have to go trolling your start menu to find that information. Everything down to your license details. And good to see that I'm fully licensed there, Julian. One thing that we'll see under the WinForms control is a new skin editor. We get a lot of feedback when it comes to the themes and skins, especially across all the platforms. What we're going to look at briefly is the version 2 skin editor, because it also introduces one new component that was added to 17.1, which is the side panel. Now, I'm not a designer by any stretch of the imagination, so I'm not going to try and show you cool design tips in here, but this tool has been written from the ground up and allow you to step through all of the different elements of the WinForms controls and go to town on them. You've got the ability to set all the different colors, the different styles. You can bring in existing themes, you can modify things. You've even got a cool, what's the French word for this little magnifying glass, Julian?
Loop.
That's the one. Now you can see as I move over any element, then I'm going to actually see the color code, and I can use that when setting properties. So the side panel control is what's been used on the left here. It's a little bit different to an MDI or one of the other dockable panels. It's been introduced particularly because we wanted something inside this control. So if you want to play around with the different skins, I suggest you jump in here. It's got some really, really cool features, and I think we may end up doing just a mini webinar at some point in the future on how to use that in more detail. If you're not familiar with some of the other elements inside Visual Studio with the controls here, obviously on the Smart tag, we've got the ability to set whether we're using this layout control, showing the Smart tags. But one of the things, I'm just going to add in here a list box. And now when you click on the Smart tag, you've got this option of properties. What this will do is pop up our own custom property grid. It's still in early days, so we've already been providing some feedback to the team as to how it could become more useful in your everyday use. But it's really cool being able to access everything, all the DevExpress properties, all the standard properties directly in here, and also have access to the appearances. So you can load and save selections, skins, themes, etc. directly to the control, which is really, really powerful. And it in itself can also be skinned to suit your design environment. What we'll do is talk about some of the other functionality, the scheduler control. Now I know we've had a few people already ask about the scheduler control. There has been some updates to the same. We've added a MS Outlook inspired UI. Now that simply means that we've brought it more in line with what people are familiar to seeing inside Outlook and the actual UX or UI that Microsoft use. There's been changes to the time cell selection, the appointment rectangle and inner layout, the navigation buttons, day headers, navigation panel, cell editors, the flyouts and tooltips for appointments. There has been some performance enhancements. That we've changed some of the animation when scrolling, so it's smoother inside the day, the work week, the full week, the week and month views. We've added animation to the drag and drop and redesigned the resource color palette, as well as a number of graphic improvements in that control. So definitely worth looking at. Julian, you went through, I think, just about everything there was on the spreadsheet control. So again, we've got the conditional formatting, rules manager, the formatting of cells. The tree list control has also now features the Excel style filtering where you've got the values that I showed before, as well as the expression editor for the unbound expressions. And we've had a look at the design elements inside Visual Studio. OData v4 is now supported as a data source. What else have we got? There's our Entity Framework. We've now added Entity Framework core support via the data source wizard. So if you're actually using the core framework, so .NET Core, then you can also utilize our wizard inside that with EF. And just looking through, if you've got PDFs now that have regions of highlighted text, they are now being rendered inside the PDF control. There is the ability in our mapping to actually incorporate any data source using the data source connection wizard as well. So lots of little enhancements. The barcode API has got a new export to image with there's a specification for changing the DPI so that you can get more control over the image formats and resolutions. You've covered everything on the diagram control. So maybe we should look at some questions.
I think we're just about ready. Actually, I have one question for you, Paul. Yeah,
Yes.
CTO to technical evangelist. When is all this going to come out? Come on.
I'm sure I should be asking you that question, but since I've got the slide deck right now,
Yeah.
and I believe you used your CTO powers to program PowerPoint.
Hey, you know, that's the way you become CTO. So pretty much any day. We last I heard is we had a build and we were just doing the final tests on that install to make sure that it doesn't fall over for some, you know, bizarre combination of Visual Studios or whatever. So it's that close I can taste it. How about that?
As in, it's going to be there today, tomorrow?
I was hoping today, so maybe tomorrow. It's, as I say, it's that close. And of course, the beta has been out for, what, a couple of weeks now?
Yes,
So,
it has.
Yeah, and of course, we've been using the beta for our demos here today. So questions, oh my word. Amanda and I have been basically answering questions as quickly as we could while you were talking, and you were doing the same when I was talking. And there was one earlier on. So for the filter options on a grid column, James asks, is blank and is not blank would be nice as well. He didn't see them in the drop down. I wasn't paying attention at the time because I was typing. So
I think that's a great bit of feedback. I mean, if it was a Boolean field, you obviously have the
right.
Is checked, is not checked, or is null if it's a nullable Boolean. So
for some definition of blank then, or a string, I suppose. You could have a blank string. But
you could use like and then 2 empty quotes, but I like the idea of having that. So we'll send that back to the team.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So that was one. What else we had just recently?
Localization from the DevExpress menu. I think that's good feedback as well. So being able to maybe select your localized setting. Question from Bradley. With the skin editor, can I copy an existing one and then customize? Yes, you can. You can start with a standard skin and modify just the items that you want. Now, the question here about being able to switch off the version 16.2 tool panel. Unfortunately, that's something that is a Microsoft control thing. I'm not a fan of the way that we have to work with the toolbox in Visual Studio. There's nothing worse than running a new version and then having to sit back while Visual Studio tries to pre-populate and do all its things. Right. Personally, I go through and delete the tool sections myself if I don't want to uninstall a previous version. Because again, there's nothing worse than working in, say, 17.1, especially in the web environment, and double clicking on a 16.2 control and it screws up web config and does all sorts of weird things.
Ooh, ow.
Eugene has said, where can you get more skins? The skins, he's got people complaining that they're not all for boys. Actually, he said they're right. But, it's interesting. A lot of work goes into creating a whole set of skins. So, Eugene, using that new skin creation tool, maybe you could generate one and send it to us to have a look at.
I just want to emphasize to anybody, we have a team of graphics designer here at DevExpress, but they are spread thinly across all of our platforms. So it's not just we have a graphics designer for WinForms, we have a graphics designer for WPF or whatever. We have a team of graphics designers, I think it's like 4 of them, and they do updates across everything, including our website. So yeah, if you don't like the skins, you'll have to wait. We do try and produce a new skin per release, but
and naming the skin.
yeah, that's always fun. But I'll have to pass along our skins are too masculine feedback. That's kind of an interesting one.
No, it was the opposite. Our skins are too feminine.
Oh, okay. We need masculine one. Okay.
Yes. I'm not sure what a masculine theme looks like, but
I know, and that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, what is it? Footballs or?
That's the first thing that came to mind, but I'm going to leave it there because we're going to go way off track really quickly.
Yeah.
Somebody did ask the inevitable question, Julian.
What's that? XAF. Would
any of these features be available in XAF?
Eventually, yes. XAF is one of those products where it has to evolve one release after the main suites, because there's obviously a lot to do for XAF. You have to produce a new controller, you have to do all that kind of code to be able to add it to the product itself, to the library itself. So I'd have to say, wait, we might put it out in a minor release, but hopefully by 17.2.
17.2 is only 6 months away. So Suresh has asked if we can add a cancel changes in the grid designer. Now, from my experience, using the cross in the top right-hand corner of the designer will allow you to cancel out without saving any changes. Maybe the team need to think about a cancel button doing the same thing.
Yeah.
We have a question. Any plan for a spreadsheet designer? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Prem. What sort of things would a spreadsheet designer do? So if you could maybe give us some feedback on that. Steve's asked if there's anything significant on reports. You'll have to come along on Friday to our presentation on reporting and analytics and dashboards to find out. There was a plug, by the way, Amanda. Bradley has asked, exporting data from the grid, is there a wizard end users? No. Well, depending on the WinForms or WPF, but send your feedback. So open up a suggestions ticket, and this is one of the things, like the functionality that gets added. The teams go through the support center. It's the best place to voice your opinion. It's not just for registering what you think may be a bug, but also suggestions, because that's where the voices get counted and heard.
Okay.
What about an end user chart designer for WPF, Julian?
End user report designer for WPF.
End user chart designer. For WPF.
Chart designer. That I don't know. I'd have to pass on the feedback.
Okay. A couple of others here that are a little more high level. I think you can follow up in a blog post.
Don't see why not. Or we'll discuss amongst ourselves. A lot of these are why not this, why not that, do this, do that. So Scott Hood asks, is it Tacos Tuesday? I think on that note, we ought to pass things back to Amanda.
I hope it is.
I have some tacos being delivered. So thank you all, and thank you all for being here and listening to Paul and I doing our stuff. Thank you, Paul.
Come back Friday.
Right, come back.
Yes, Friday. Yes, we got another one on Friday. Oh, but
because I won't be in New York on Friday.
You'll be in England.
I will be in Yorkshire.
You're just a jet setter these days.
Full of, but also inhaling all those bad germs on planes.
Right. All right,
Thanks,
guys, thank you so much. Exciting stuff for 17.1. I'm going to just go over really quickly what's coming up, even though I think Paul and Julian kind of touched on it. Tomorrow, we have what's new in 17.1 for Code Rush. Join Mark Miller and get a peek inside Code Rush for Rosalind. And then Thursday is new in 17.1 for DevExpress. Julian will be back along with Mehul Harry for an in-depth review of upcoming HTML5 and JavaScript products, including our new React data grid. Exciting. And then Friday, as they said, is dashboards, reporting, and analytics. And it will be Julian and Paul back to show you how we're reshaping our data analytics product line and how you can deliver more in less time with 17.1. And like I mentioned previously, today's webinar will also be made available on our DevExpress YouTube channel. I'll post that link in the chat box. And that is it for this one. Thank you so much to Julian and Paul. Thank you all for joining us. And of course, thank you for choosing DevExpress. Bye-bye.